Hey everybody, welcome back to the 89th episode of Taps and Patience. I am AJ with Audacity Micro, here with Harrison of Precision Ingenuity. How you doing, Harrison? Was I loud? You
I'm
made
doing
faces at
good.
me.
I'm doing good, but you're going Mr. Roboto.
Oh, am I? Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I'm not clipping as far as I can tell, but
Okay. Am I coming in good on your end?
yeah, you sound fine. It's probably just an internet thing, and Zencaster should fix it in post by
Okay.
itself.
Sounds good. So, anyways, how we doing?
I am doing all right. Uh, my allergies have been bad, and I kind of accidentally took allergy medicine that made me sleep until noon today. So I'm
Oh
feeling
man.
pretty awake right now.
Yeah. So I mean you're going to be up to midnight to make up for it?
I probably should be.
You probably shouldn't. But
Yeah, but
just
I
get up
get a
early
lot
in
of
the morning.
stuff done. Like kids are in bed.
Yeah.
It's not
I
as
don't know.
hot.
If you got work lined up and you can be productive, then yeah, but I mean it is a little late to get started
Well,
on something.
I kind of took apart part of my machine and have not put it back together yet. So I should probably do at least that.
Yeah, I'd probably do at least that.
So
So,
it developed an air leak somewhere. There's like a little side panel that covers a lot of the pneumatic stuff, and I it was like behind a metal plate that I had to take off, and that metal
mm,
plate was super hard to remove from the machine. It was one
mhm.
of those things where it was like a nut and a bolt that, obviously in their worlds they're right next to each other, but to get to either side of them you had to have like one arm all the way like up underneath behind the chip pan, and then have another arm all the way on the other side. And it took me like an hour to get two nuts and bolts off, but
Ouch. That's
now
not
I
fun.
can get to the part that's leaking, and I still don't actually know what's leaking, but I can find it now
So how do you know you've gotten to the part that's leaking if you still don't know what part's leaking?
because I've taken everything off.
Oh,
Like
okay.
there's nothing else to remove.
Can you feel the
I
air?
just need to
Come.
plug it back in.
Can
Yeah,
you
it was
feel where
like an
it's?
aggressive leak. It was not like
Oh,
a
okay.
little bit of a hiss. It was bad, and it made my compressor run a lot, which put more water in my lines,
Yeah.
and made my scrap room, like the dirty stuff room, very warm. It was getting up to like probably literally 120 degrees in there because the air
Mm-hmm.
compressor was cycling so much. So
Oh man,
it
that's
needed fixed.
yeah. Speaking of air compressors, I actually had to move mine today.
Oh,
Yeah,
were you
I had.
maybe rearranging for a purpose?
I am. So, um,
Harrison and I don't talk before the podcast.
yeah. I may have made a purchase for another machine.
I
So,
feel like we should bury the lead a little bit longer. So IMTS meetup Monday 2 p.m. We have a song. You can go watch the YouTube video for the full song. IMTS meetup at the tormach booth 2 p.m. Bring a part to show off.
ooh,
If you make parts that you are able to carry around. If they're too heavy to carry, then don't bring one. And that part will act as a great icebreaker. Um, I was a little bit worried that it would be like me and Harrison and like two of our Patreons, but I've gotten some
mm,
messages. And if we assume the 25% of people have RSVP'd, and like there's 75% of people who are coming and haven't RSVP'd, which I think would be honestly a little bit optimistic even. We should have at least 20, 25, 30 people there. So
sweet.
plus the
I don't know.
Tormach people.
Yeah, it'll be. I mean, honestly, I've met one fan, and that was awesome. So, like, if one other person showed up besides us, even just meeting you is going to be awesome, like in person, because like we've never actually met in
Yeah, we've
person.
never
So,
actually met.
I am so excited for IMTS. It can't get here fast enough for me. Um,
Same.
we just we have so much going on in the background right now that I'm honestly. So, someone asked me today how I was doing, and I think my response was something along the lines of I'm excited, I'm scared, I'm nervous, I'm overwhelmed, I'm like it was just like all the emotions right now, all the emotions right now, every type. And it's the business is at another turning point. So we had a turning point when we moved into the new building, and that's worked out really, really well. And I'm getting that anticipation of being on another ledge, of like another step, another big step.
Mm.
And so
A
part of
step
that we'll
up,
talk
not a
about
ledge
later.
down.
Yeah, step up. So, well, to be fair, depending on how things go, it could be a step up or a step down, and that's the nervousness part. It could be, it's going to be a major shift one way or the other. And so far, it's going to be a step up, but there's always that potential that the rug gets pulled out from under you, and so plan for the best and hope for the best, plan for the worst, but I don't know. We'll see.
So speaking of step ups, you bought something.
Yeah, yeah. So
We can talk about that right after we thank our Patreons. No, okay, I'm sorry.
oh man,
Yeah.
Haas.
We did get two new $25 Patrons, by the way. So
Oh dang.
I think we're actually going to be able to pay for your plane tickets and maybe some of our food at IMTS. So
Heck yeah. Man,
okay, let's
who
stop
are all
teasing
these
them
nice
before they
people?
all leave us.
Who are all these nice people that listen
I
to our
know.
podcast?
Oh, someone did you watch my video about making the plastic parts?
Some of it. I don't think I finished it.
Someone sent me tweezers. I don't
Oh,
know
that is
who. There wasn't a note. It just was an Amazon package that showed up on my desk today. In that video, I say, remind me to buy tweezers, and somebody sent me tweezers. I don't know who you are, but you must have at least kind of know me because you have my address and or have bought something from Design the Everything. But thank you, whoever you were, mystery tweezer person.
That's awesome. So yeah, no, I haven't watched it all, but that's cool.
Okay. So really, let's talk about your new machine.
Yeah, so I have been bombarded with machine salespeople over the last month or so. And I've talked to Mazak, I've talked to Okuma, Haas, DN Solutions. I keep saying Doosan, but they're technically DN Solutions now. That just doesn't sound right in my head, but whatever.
They're
Um,
Doosan.
and then Smart. I've never heard of them. And then I had another sales rep that showed up today. He had two or three different brands that he represented. And so we looked at those machines a little bit. I did talk to Yamazin, and I got some brother quotes just out of curiosity. I actually got a
Good.
quote on S700 or S700 and the U500, I think.
Ooh.
So just kind of good.
Can you send me those quotes?
Yeah. Bring a new pair of shorts.
Uh-oh.
They are proud of those machines. I'm sure there's probably some discounts and stuff, and I don't remember what the quotes were fully loaded, but yeah, they were not cheap.
Even
the
on
quotes,
even the S700?
the S700 was, and like I said, I don't remember if it's with all the options, but yeah, its price was basically a fully loaded price from Haas or Doosan for the machine that we actually got. So
Okay. I guess if it's a fully kitted out one, that checks out.
so
Because I've done the videos about like Tormach versus Sile versus the mini mill, and everyone's like, but you can buy a Speedio for $60,000. And I think
yeah.
that's just BS at this point. It was probably true like 10 years ago, but I think it's just BS now.
And this was for the S700. I'm sure if you maybe went to the 500 or the 300, the prices are going to come down with those
I
machines.
don't think there's much price difference.
Oh, really? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to IMTS where I can actually see some of these machines in person, get a little more comfortable with them. Anyways, long story short, it came down to Hassan and DN Solutions. It is mainly a price thing more than anything else. We had kind of a monthly payment that we were trying to limit ourselves to, and we were going to go with a VF2 sized machine. That's
Okay.
what we were leaning towards. And honestly, Haas and Doosan, just for kicks and giggles, I found out I could fit a VF4 in one spot. And so we talked to Haas and Doosan about a 50 by 20 sized machine, something that with a table capacity of 50 by 20, and which would be the VF4 and the Doosan SVM 5100. And basically, they both offered insane discounts that were uh, they were offering more off than we got on our last machine for a cheaper machine. So a larger cash discount
Yeah.
for a less expensive machine. So it was awesome deals on both sides. And I struggled. I really struggled, if I'm honest. I really love my Haas. It's an awesome machine. Um, every salesman that I talked to dogged on it. And honestly, that kind of, I'm not wanting to be a Haas fanboy, but how much crap they talk about that machine and how good it's been for us, like it almost turned me into a Haas fanboy. Just being like, okay, guys, you know, stick it up your rear. This machine's awesome. Um, and like I'm sure that their machines are good, but I don't know. Like everyone's like, when you look at the weight and the specs and everything, like everything's so close that like I don't know if like I'd have to see these machines actually run to know if they're actually worth the difference. And you know, I'd have one guy, oh, no one's going to beat us on price, and they're the most expensive. Anyways, it's been a long battle trying to figure out which machine to get, and it came down to, like I said, Haas and Doosan. They both were extremely well um, equipped, basically fully loaded, and I was at a situation where the Haas, because of Haas financing, and because we already have one, I think would be the more financially responsible and would have been the better machine in the short term. And the Doosan would have its own set of challenges, but would have been a better machine in the long run. And I didn't want to only stick Haas machines in our shop. I wanted, but and my fear, and me and Weston had this conversation. My fear was not wanting to be a Haas fanboy. I didn't want that to be the only reason I went with a Doosan. You know, and it came down to it, and basically what kind of determined it, if I'm honest, is I asked for a little bit more off of the Doosan, and it was a reasonable amount, but it was just enough to where I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave it in God's hands. If they say yes and they take that last little bit off, then I'll take that as a sign that I should go that way, and if they don't, I'll go Haas. And it's still going to be a more expensive machine than the Haas,
Mm-hmm.
but it was kind of the best way that we could determine. Like at this point, we were both racking our heads trying to make this decision, and ended up going Doosan. So I'm excited for it. But the two things that I'm scared about, and the two biggest things that I'm worried about with the Doosan is um, broaching, because I got some parts coming up that from a customer that could be has the potential to be, and I don't know if I've talked about these on the podcast or not, but has the potential to be repeat work, and
Uh-huh.
some of their parts are broached, and I was planning on doing them on whatever new machine we got. And so the Doosan can do it, but it's going to be more challenging than it is on the Haas because I can use the VPS on the Haas. I don't know what I can do. I don't know how I'm going to do it on the Doosan other than writing something custom.
You know, the code might not actually be much different. You
I
may
could
have to
probably
change
copy
like an M
paste it.
code or something.
Yeah,
But
I could probably copy paste it from Haas if I really got desperate, um, which I might do. Who knows? And then the other problem is, well, not really a problem, but the thing that just is a tick in Haas's favor is um, MRZP in relation to a fourth axis. So if I wanted to get a fourth axis with a vise and put it on the new machine and rotate it around, um, the Doosan, you have to go up to their 5-axis controller before it has anything like MRZP. So basically, you have to program everything for the fourth axis off the center line of rotation. and your origin can't move. Which if you're doing palletized workloads or anything like that, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
But if I put the biggest problem is if I ever mount a vise to it or anything like that and try to load in raw material that way, I can't probe it and use that feature. So not the end of the world, but I've gotten really used to it on the 5-axis, and I absolutely love that feature. It's the best thing ever. So, anyways, that's kind of the down low on the new machine. And so, for that reason, to kind of wrap this all the way back up, I had to move the air compressor 1 foot closer to the wall, and so it's in the corner, and it was 2 foot
Yeah.
off the wall in both directions. I had to scoot it back on the diagonal and have it 1 foot on either side.
So can you give me just a quick like run down the technical spec sheet of the mill, like
Yeah,
travels, horsepower, just like all the
I'll
kind
see.
of basic stuff? Because
Yeah, and
I have literally zero understanding of any product lines outside of like tormach, brother, Haas. Everyone else, they're just all a mess and they don't make sense to me.
yeah. I will hang on. I'm looking for the email with all the information on it. Okay. So the SVM 5100L. It's a 12,000 RPM Cat 40 dual contact spindle, which will be nice. I'll be interested to try dual contact and see how much rigidity that actually adds compared to non-dual contact Cat 40. It's got through spindle coolant. Although I think the Doosan is rated at 210 psi and the Haas is rated at 300 psi.
Okay.
But and this is something that I have no idea if it's true or not. But on my diagnostics page on the Haas, depending on the tool I'm running, I've seen the psi get between 600 and 700 psi. Um,
Interesting.
and so it's almost running at like twice the pressure for some tools. For other tools, it'll be down at like 100. Um, and so that's kind of an interesting thing. Doosan says that it's 210 psi at the cutting tip, is what they say of the tool. And so I'm wondering if it's going to be in the same boat of the Haas, where if you were to put a pressure sensor, if the pressure sensor is right at the beginning of the pump and it's reading, over 300 psi or over 200 psi, but at the tip, like if it was like a small orifice, it would be 210 because of pressure losses. I don't know.
You
Um,
you would think they would put a pressure relief valve on the pump or right by the pump, and that is where your set point is set.
yeah,
That would be
okay.
my guess.
So here's the deal. I've basically I've accidentally deadheaded it once or twice,
Uh-huh.
and it does have some sort of a pressure relief valve, but when that happens, it stops at around 400 psi.
Interesting.
So it goes higher when there's flow and it's got a small orifice than if you were to run it against like a tool like a say for example you loaded up a drill and you thought it was through spindle and it wasn't. Just for an example. Um then yeah, it doesn't go that high. It doesn't go as high as one that did have a hole. So it's interesting. Um
Or if, for example, you were to put a calibration tool in the AT or in the spindle and then turn on through spindle coolant.
yeah, I haven't done that, but
Oh, never mind. Keep
but
watching
anyway.
that video. That video I just published today.
Oh, you just gotcha. Yeah, which we'll get into that, but AJ published an awesome video. Well, I say awesome video. I'm 10 minutes in on like the new tormach machine. We'll get into that, but I'm excited to see that video. I've only
An
seen about 10
hour
minutes of it.
long video.
Oh man, that's going to be awesome. I
I
love
called
that
it a
kind of stuff.
teardown. It's not really a teardown, but
Anyways,
yeah.
so that's so through spindle coolant and the spindle chiller and 30 tool ATC. So that's the standard stuff that it comes with. The add-ons that we have added is a chip conveyor. And the interesting thing about the Doosan, which they're the only machine that I've had experience with or that I've talked to that is this way, but the way their chip conveyor works, you can have it come out on the left side or the right side. So you can choose the direction you want it to come out, which is the only one that I've seen that's like that, which is pretty cool. We added the Renishaw tool setter and probe. So added that. And is that the only two things we added? That might be the only two things we added.
Are you doing the OMP 40 Renishaw wise?
This is the OMP 60.
Oh, because it's a big boy.
So
I have been talking to a couple people about like Renishaw probing and stuff, and apparently the OMP 400 and I assume the 600 are not that much more expensive than the 40 or the 60, but they are way more precise. So I think I'm actually thinking about upgrading my probe to the 400.
Oh, gotcha. Interesting.
So
can you trade in and get a good return? Or how do you?
So if I was to upgrade mine, I would just go onto eBay and buy one.
Okay.
Because they're not that expensive. But they have like load cells in them instead of the springy ball contact things, and so they don't have that like trilobular air.
What's his name? Dylan from Protean Machining just got one.
Yeah. In fact, it may have been him who I was talking to. It was in the Insta Machinist Discord group, and they made a very compelling argument for him.
More than likely, yeah. Oh man, I can't find the breakdown of like all the different features. And the last thing we got from them was the 160 millimeter rotary table. It's a I'm not going to pronounce that right. 160 millimeter.
Is the Haas HRT 160 also 160 millimeter? Is that what the?
I think so. Yeah.
That's small.
The 210 is 9
millimeter.
Yeah.
9 inches.
Yeah, 9 inches.
Oh. Why so small?
What? 9 inches?
The HRT 160, yeah.
Oh, the HRT 160 is smaller than that. That's going to be less than 9
You just
inches.
said...
No, the 210 is 9 inches.
Yeah, you just said yours was 160 millimeters.
Mm-hmm. It is. So the reason we went with that
so that's only 6 inches.
Yeah. Smaller diameter.
Okay. Yeah, it's so small.
Yeah. So it was basically because we didn't want to pay the extra, like, what was it, $5 or $7 for a few extra inches. We're going to be mounting something to it regardless.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So we're gonna be mounting something to it. We compared them. It was like $5 or $7 more for the larger one, and if I remember correctly, between the two, the 160 was, I want to say, 155 foot-pounds of holding torque, and the 210 was like 175 or 180, something like that. And then the loading, how much weight they could hold, the 160, I want to say, was like 250 pounds, and then the 210 was like 300 or 350 pounds. So it wasn't like the biggest thing was the through bore size, and even the through bore sizes were basically identical. For the Haas 210, you went up to like a 2-inch through bore.
Wow. Okay.
Versus the 160 that we got is 1.5 inches, and then the The 210 was an inch and 3/4, so you got an extra 1/4 inch. So
Okay.
I feel like if a bigger, like going from 2 inch, from an inch and a half to 2 inch is a big jump because there's like a lot of parts that are right around that 2 inch mark. But going from an inch and a half to an inch and a 3/4, that extra 1/4 inch, there's not as many parts that are going to be in that range. Like I feel like everything's going to be above that.
Yeah.
So, um, but the interesting thing about it is that its speed. So the Haas actually had um higher torque, but it was a slower speed. So the 210, I
Mm.
think, was 200 foot-pounds of holding torque. But the arc seconds between the 210 was 100 arc seconds versus the 160 we're getting is 460 arc seconds.
Okay. So
So
it's zippy.
it's over 4 times faster.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll see. Um, this is kind of an experiment to kind of play around with some different brands and see what we like, what we don't like. Um, I like to say Haas is the easy button,
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
and so we'll kind of see what we like and dislike once we kind of get the Doosan up and running. I mean, I went and I looked at a SVM 4100 in person. There was a local guy who had one, and I was really impressed. Like just walking around it and watching it run. Really nice machine. So I know I'm going to be happy with the machine. I just feel like there's a few features that the Haas has that I'm really going to miss in the
Mm-hmm.
Doosan. I mean, and that's how it is with every brand. Like you're going to find things you like, you don't like. I mean, there's things I miss about Path Pilot that I don't have on my
Yeah.
on my Haas. So like everyone's going to have like one or two features that you're just like, oh man, I wish my machine could do this like that machine can. So, but it is what it is. So, anyways, so that's kind of my big news. Um, and then um, going to Europe, I mentioned I actually have an itinerary this time.
Ooh.
So for
Does it
those
include
that,
Argentina?
so those of you who have been messaging me on Instagram, I think I've had 4 or 5 people over in Europe who've messaged me about either coming by and seeing your shops or uh, meeting up or being a guide to help me see some cool sites while we're there. Um, I really hope that we have the opportunity to meet all these different people. But I am with my family, and this is the thing that like I didn't think about last time. It's not just me; it's me, my wife, my parents, and my brothers, and so it's going to be kind of a big group. And I'm not the one that planned this whole deal, so I'm kind of at the whims. My parents were the ones that kind of put it together, so I'm kind of at the whims of what they've planned out for us. But I'm hoping that I can at least meet up with everyone that's messaged me, at least for like 5 minutes or something. I'd like to give everyone who messages me that's in Europe and can meet up for like 5 minutes. I'd like to at least get a coin. Seems how I have the designs now, and try
Yeah.
to give you guys a coin or something, just as a cool deal. Anyways, so my schedule is we're gonna do 2 nights in Amsterdam, one night in Cologne, one night in Heidelberg, 2 nights in Switzerland, um,
Where's
and
Heidelberg?
then, huh?
Where's Heidelberg?
Heidelberg.
Is
It's
that
kind
in
of it's in Germany.
this Germany? Okay.
hmm So I have a friend who's in Heidelberg that we're gonna go visit. Um, some from before my machining days. He lived here, married a girl. He's got a kid over there. Super nice guy. Um, 2 nights in Switzerland. Um, and then uh, okay, I can't pronounce some of these places. Uh, we're gonna do a day trip to the top of a mountain, and I think it's in Switzerland. And
Okay.
I can't pronounce where that is. And then 3 nights in Venice.
Cool.
So, It's going to be a fun trip, and I'm looking forward to it. But it's always when you get away from the shop, it's really hard to turn that part of your brain off sometimes, especially when there's so much change going on right now. Um, so I'm looking forward to it, but I'm honestly kind of looking forward to IMTS a little bit more on some level. Like,
That trip sounds like a whirlwind. Like
yeah,
you're doing so much in so little time.
it is. Like my family has, or yeah, my parents have basically planned it out where my dad, I like to say this is he's a man on a mission whenever we travel and do on vacations. It's like we're gonna do this, then we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, and it's just like there's very little time to deviate from the intended path.
Yeah.
And it honestly stresses me out some. It's just like, can you just like, this is my vacation to relax. Like, I don't need
Yeah.
to hit all this stuff. Like, can I just kind of like go and just relax? So, but I'm looking forward to it. Um, I think depending on how this trip goes, I'd like to plan another trip where I can go back and like meet up with all the different machinists and see a whole bunch of shops and maybe just go with me and my wife and just kind of hit some stuff that she wants to hit and hit some stuff that I want to hit and just kind of have a nice relaxing trip instead of this one that I'm imagining is going to be a lot more stressful. So we'll see. But anyways, I'm excited. I'm really hoping I can meet some people on this trip that are podcast listeners. Um, and so, yeah, there's that. So I've been
So I
talking
went
a
on
while.
I was about to say, so I went on a little bit of a trip.
What you got?
So was that last week, 2 weeks ago, something like that? My wife and I drove up to a cozy little town in Wisconsin, and actually it was Madison, which is a pretty big town, and hung out at Tormach for 2 days. Um, we spent, like I said, we were there for 2 full days. The first day was basically focused on just kind of general Tormach and also their robot. We spent a lot of time playing with the robot on the first day and looking at that and getting pretty deep into that. And then on the second day, we looked at the 1500 and made some parts on that and hung out. There was like a company barbecue they do like every Thursday, and we got to
Mm-hmm.
hang out there. Oh, and I recorded a interview with the CEO, which was also a lot of
Ooh.
fun.
Are you going to post the one with the CEO?
Yes. Oh, yes. It has some
Sweet.
sound issues that, speaking of Dylan, I'm going to ask him to see if he can help me clean up some. But I've got about 8 hours of video. I have published about an hour of it. And on a lot of my videos, like I'll have 2 hours of video, but like an hour of it will be like just sped up and turned into a time lapse. Or like I'll take the most interesting 3 cuts out of a program, and those will make it into my video. But this is like all usable video without much to edit out. So I'm kind of figuring out how to edit a video like that because it doesn't fit into my normal workflows as well.
Don't shy away from the long form. Like I would do the long form, and then if you wanted to, you could do a highlight reel or something.
Yeah.
But for me, anytime Saunders did or like anyone did like a shop tour that was really long, I ate that stuff up. Like I would get some popcorn, sit down, and watch it like a movie. Like it is the best.
So my current plan is I am editing everything in the same timeline. So I have like an 8 hour long timeline with all of the clips, and I'm like working in that. And I'm going to pull smaller videos out of that. So for example, I mean, it wasn't a small video, but today I published the one where we like went through the 1100 MX, or excuse me, the 1500 MX in detail. So I just pulled that out, but like it's still there in the original timeline. And I'm going to do that for a couple of videos. This will probably be 3 or 4 videos total. But then I'm going to have a like an extended cut of everything all together. Probably in chronological order, because like some things we did, like the robot stuff, for example, they had a demo where they were cutting some soft jaws on the 1500, and we went back to that like 4 different times, and there was other stuff in between. And for the video, I'll like edit all of that stuff so that it makes sense, like from a story
Mm-hmm.
perspective. But I want to do an extended video that's all just like the trip chronologically. And um, that video is going to be like 6 hours long. And I think I'm going to make it a Patreon only / channel members only video.
Oh yeah, that'd be sweet.
Also, because I don't think anybody else will actually watch it. But
Yeah,
it'll probably be like
definitely.
4. Other than that, this will work out to be like 4 videos that are like half an hour to 45 minutes long.
So, what was your impression of the new machine?
I was really impressed. Like, I was impressed by the specs before I got there, and I was like, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is really cool. It's got like stainless steel weight covers, and like this is a cool machine." But
Mm-hmm.
then actually getting to see it running, it's like, "Oh, this is a machine. Like this is actually industrial grade, very nice. Like it is not an 1100 MX, but bigger. This is a different animal." Um,
Did they show you any of the assembly line of like how they're making it? Because isn't this one fully made in the U.S.?
no, this is made in Mexico.
Oh, it
The
is.
casting comes from Ohio, I believe. Um, there's a fair amount of parts that come from the U.S., but it is made or it is assembled in Mexico. So
Interesting. I thought it was like being like mostly made in the U.S.
no,
Oh, okay,
um,
fair enough.
the Tormach's facility there was like kind of surprisingly small because they also have a third party company that does their logistics. It's called a 3PL
Oh,
in the industry. Um,
hmm.
so basically, like they had a little bit of warehouse space, maybe like 6 or 8,000 square feet of warehouse, and then they had like 2,000 square feet, so like the size of my shop. There was a showroom, and then like
Mm-hmm.
6,000 square feet of R&D, and I guess there were some office spaces too. But it was not a huge place. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like I would suspect that some of our listeners had shops that were significantly larger than Tormach.
Interesting.
At least their headquarters here in Wisconsin.
Hmm.
Um, they operate, from what I can tell, mostly remotely. Obviously, there's some people who are like playing on prototype machines or showing machines in the showroom,
Mm-hmm.
but Tormach has like 80 employees, and I don't think we ever saw more than 10. And that was at the like company barbecue where everybody who's in town comes in, shows up.
Wow,
Um,
that's impressive. Like, I, it's wild that a company can operate so remote
it,
like that.
yeah, it was pretty cool. I would say my biggest takeaway was how well Tormach was run.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at least from a like employee management relationship kind of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Um, their CEO, his name was Rogi. Um, he was a good guy. Like he was just a nice guy. He was a good balance of like I'm a business person, but also being very technical.
Mm-hmm.
And his strategy seemed to be to just hire smart people and let them do their things.
Yeah.
And so like I never once while I was there saw him like manage any employees. Like there was a couple times where he was like checking up on projects, but
Mm-hmm.
like the whole company, like it was just smart people doing their own things. And there was like a software guy who would like go do some coding, and then like he was also working on this like passion project where he was um, doing some metrology stuff with their robot,
Mm-hmm.
and or doing some like calibration stuff for the robot, not using the robot for metrology, but and he was like reading like scientific papers about kinematic design and stuff, and like was recreating one of their experiments with the robot, just kind of like not just for fun, but like it's not ever going to make it into a product.
Yeah,
um he was just
that's cool.
like Tormach just kind of gave him the permission to just go do stuff. Like you're smart, get your job done, but have at it. And that's how the like
So
everything was like everywhere.
is that because isn't Tormach like employee owned, kind of?
Tormach they have an ESOP, or they are an ESOP, an employee stock ownership program.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it. I I I meant to ask this, but I forgot. Like how much decision Tormach employees have in like bigger strategy thing. I
Mm-hmm.
don't I don't know if they like have voting rights. Like, if Rogi gets hit by a bus, or they can like sit down and vote for their next CEO.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get that impression that they did. Um, but they do get some benefit of like profits and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but man, out of all of the places I've seen, like I would not like I have never seen a work environment that I would rather work in. So
Gotcha. That's cool.
it was a
I'm
very
glad to
cool
hear that.
company.
Hmm. What was the biggest weakness of the new machine that like stood out to you?
So there's three things um, that I wasn't super thrilled with. One was, well, and I don't know. I guess I was not unthrilled by this, but the spindle horsepower seemed to be the weakest link in the cutting process.
Mm-hmm.
So as we were like, we had a fairly large block of material that we were making into a part that
Mm-hmm.
was probably 80% material removal or so. And the spindle horsepower was the thing slowing us down. Rigidity wise, not a problem at all.
Mm-hmm.
It like finishes were great. At one point, we finished the first program for Op 1, and I was looking at the part going, there's some like faceting on the corners, but the finishes were like great. And I was like, why is there this faceting? Is this like a smoothing problem in Pathpilot? And we looked at the code, and we forgot to do a contour around the outside. That was from a 3D adaptive. And the finishes
Oh.
were stellar. Like you could see like clear reflections, coming off of the part. And that was
Mm-hmm.
from a 3D adaptive. Um,
Nice.
I was really impressed with the rigidity and just like how smooth it cut and how it sounded. And that was with a 2 inch or a 2 inch long, half-inch diameter end mill
What
in
material?
aluminum,
Oh, in
admittedly,
aluminum.
but um,
Okay.
the limiting factor was definitely the spindle power, not the tool or anything in the kinematic loop other than
Mm-hmm.
that. The other thing I wasn't a huge fan on is the ATC is basically the same one from the 1100 scaled up.
Gotcha.
There's some incremental changes, like the sensors, like the in or out sensors are a little bit better. It has a full blown servo on it now. Um, like
How many tools?
there were a couple incremental improvements. 16.
Oh, okay.
But
So you
like,
get four more
I don't know.
tools.
You do get more tools, but I just kind of had some bad experiences with a tool changer on the 1100. Like, it wasn't the most reliable thing in the world.
Did you like drop tools or something with it?
It dropped tools on me a couple times. Yeah,
We never had that happen.
there's a good video of me dropping my probe and then yelling at the
I
machine.
I I do remember that. I do remember that now that you
Uh,
mention it. Um,
so, and like many things on the Tormach, there was probably a lot of things that were wrong with me, like maintenance things that I wasn't doing that I could have done better.
mm-hmm.
But like, I don't know. Other than needing to be cleaned, I haven't really had any issues with the ATC on the Haas. That thing's like 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't know. Like, it's fine. It'll work. It's just one of those things that's like, please don't drop my $5,000 Renishaw probe, or well, I guess
Yeah.
Pioneer probe. Which brings me to the last thing that I wasn't thrilled with, and that was the Pioneer probe.
Mm.
The tool setter seemed fine, but at one point on the showroom machine, the Pioneer probe got stuck in the active position, just like my Drutronics probe.
Oh, really?
And I just had PTSD flashback to like, nope, 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 not playing with crappy probes ever again. And they
Well,
are not cheap. It's the same price as a Renishaw probe.
any
Um,
chance? Any chance it was a battery issue? And
Maybe.
the
I don't know.
and the only reason I bring that up is because I just had that happen on my Haas.
Hmm.
I was working with it, and the battery started dying, and it was getting to that point, and I had it where I was trying to probe something, and all of a sudden the probe got into a sequence where it was rapidly triggering and firing, and so
Interesting.
I
That's
changed out
basically
the
what happened here.
batteries, and instantly it was back to new. So
Um, anyway, I think the buying the probe system from Tormach costs about, well, it costs about the same as buying a probe system from Haas, which I think Haas gives you a pretty good deal on the Renishaw stuff. Um, like
compared to
I'm sure if they bought a Renishaw, it would be a lot more expensive. Um, but I would just buy a used Renishaw system and put that on there, because then it would be like $2,000 for a used eBay system instead
mhm.
of $5,000 or $6,000 for the Tormach system. Well, for the
I-
Pioneer system.
as someone who has bid or has had a lot of machine quotes come across his desk here recently, I can tell you that probe pricing is all over the board.
Mm,
I've had some customers like Haas that are right around like that $5,000 to $8,000 mark for
yeah.
both, and then I've had some guys that were like 20 to 30 to add a probe, and I'm just like, what are you doing? But
Yeah.
they're like, oh yeah, we can add this probe. It's a super nice probe, and I'm like, does it wipe my butt? Like,
Yeah.
what's special about
Wow.
this thing?
Breaking
Like,
news,
it's
Harrison into
expensive.
probing. Um,
Oh, yeah. Okay, I guess I took that too far, but that's not what I meant. But anyways, you get my point. Like sometimes, like when some things are so expensive, you're like, well, better wipe my butt for that
but we
price.
have to integrate the macros.
Oh my gosh.
But we turn on high speed machining for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, so with that said, some of the different probe vendors or some of the adding probing to some of these machines, um, can be extremely expensive
Yeah.
from what I've seen. So, I don't think I've seen anything under like $5,000 or $6,000 minimum.
Yeah.
So
But on a more positive side, the coolant management and the chip management was fantastic. They didn't have an auger, but they had um, chip, I don't know what you call it, chip washdown everywhere.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
Everywhere.
yeah.
And that was really nice. It has its own separate pump. Everything comes with filtered coolant. So even the washdown had filtered coolant. The
Yeah.
regular flood coolant had filters. I don't actually remember seeing any on the TSC, but I wasn't looking. But I'm sure that must have a filter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That is a much better design from what I've seen, at least in the first 5 minutes of your or 10 minutes of your video.
yes, it
I like
is
that a
so
lot.
much better. There's a washdown on the y-axis way covers that comes on with the regular coolant,
Mm-hmm.
not the washdown coolant, which is nice because that was always a potential problem. Even my Haas has that problem sometimes, where you get a bunch of chips built up on the y-axis way
Mm-hmm.
cover. Um,
Does and I only know this because of my Haas. Can you run both the flood and through spindle at the same time?
yes,
Okay.
it's all separate pumps.
Yeah.
You could run the washdown at the same time too if you wanted.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, the chip conveyor was, I don't know, I think pretty standard, but the fact that Tormach has a chip conveyor or can have a chip conveyor was awesome.
Yeah.
Um, the the chips, like if the chip pans without the conveyor, I think are fine if you stay on top of emptying them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the I
They're gonna fill
think
up a
if you
lot
let
faster.
them build, I think if you let them, they would fill up faster because more power. But I think if you didn't empty them occasionally, the you would end up with like a dam of chips that would dam up coolant that could potentially leak. So I think as long as you're on top of occasionally emptying those, it's fine. But the
Mm-hmm.
consequence, but on like the 1100, if you didn't empty your chips, like they just built up and up and up and up, and like it was
Mm-hmm.
fine. I think on this one, it's a lot easier to empty them. But if you don't empty them, there are bigger consequences for you.
Yeah. So better chip management, but that puts more onus on the operator.
Unless you buy the chip conveyor.
Yeah.
So that's the flip side.
When the chip conveyor is on, so for the Haas, the way the augers work is you can't run it continuous. They say you can run it for like 2 minutes on and like 10 or 15 minutes off. Like that's a duty cycle. When the with the chip conveyor, is it designed to stay running all the time? Does it come on and off with M codes?
It's M
Um,
code controlled. Um, it also has like P and Q values where you can set a duty cycle. You can PWM it basically,
mm-hmm.
and but you don't have to. They said that existed. That exists so that you can like bring a stack of chips halfway up, let the coolant drain off, go dump them, bring another stack of chips halfway off, and let like it's a coolant
Okay.
management kind of thing. But you can run it
Gotcha.
continuously, or you
Okay.
could control the speed.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Haas, the auger system, you can't run it continuously because I guess it'll the motor will get hot.
yeah. So this one I don't think has that issues. Now it doesn't have augers, like I said. It uses the washdown inside
Mm-hmm.
the machine,
Yeah.
and then once it dumps it into the conveyor, and then the conveyor brings it up to a trash can.
Gotcha. Do you know how high it was? Did you measure that by
Trash can
chance?
height, standard like 55-gallon rolling trash can fit neatly underneath it.
Okay. Okay. That's my biggest problem with the auger system is that a standard 55-gallon trash can does not work.
Yes,
You have to get a shorter one.
you have to buy the chip lift to do that,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
an extra
But
like $10,000 from Haas.
for those of you that don't know, I did find, I want to say it's on Uline, they have like a mini trash can. It's like
Oh,
a
that's
32
nice.
gallon trash can that fits on the same casters as like the other ones. And it fits perfectly. Like when you go to shove it under in the lip, it just barely rubs the lip when it's going in.
Nice.
So that's awesome. And then another thing that I honestly thought of as a product idea, but I'll go ahead and share it on the podcast as well. And if anyone wants to pick it up, that's fine. Um, I was looking at used machines, and someone had a Haas machine, and the way that auger comes out, there's like a cover on it that directs
Mm-hmm.
the chips down. It's got 4 bolts that you can remove it off. A lot of people take them off so they can reach their hand all the way down and bring the chips out. I found a used machine where someone had fabricated a plate that bolted onto that and then extended it out high enough to where it could go into a 55-gallon drum. And
That makes
so
sense.
it was a bolt-on solution that was like 2 sheet metal pieces if someone wanted to fabricate it. And I
Yeah.
was thinking about drawing it up and selling it as an item or something because it'd be real easy to add on and it'd give you an extended reach for those that wanted it. So, kind of cool.
Let's see, what was I talking about? So, oh, the other thing that I really liked about it is it was heavily designed by the service department, by like
Mm.
Norman. And so there's a lot of service things on that machine that just really make sense. For example, there is a oil manifold kind of thing
Mm-hmm.
that is like on the Haas machines, that's buried underneath the table. To get to it
Mm-hmm.
on my OM, I have to remove the table to get to it. And it's just like under a little cover on the tormach. It's like just under a little cover right at the front of the table. So all you have to do is
That's
take
cool.
off like 4 screws, and then you have access to all of your oil management stuff to make sure that like everything is getting oil, and you're not gonna grenade your what should
Yeah.
we call it, your ball screw nuts. Um,
See,
and there's like a bunch of just little thoughtful things like that. You can remove the Z-axis ball screw. Actually, I think you can remove all of the ball screws without any disassembly of the machine if you need to replace anything. Other than like,
really?
yeah, with the Z-axis, at very least, you don't even have to take off the motor.
Interesting. Does
You,
the head like drop?
it comes
So
out
like,
from underneath the ball screw. They put a channel in the casting so you can get it out underneath.
what about like do you have to like hold the motor up or something? Do you have to like put some wood under it or something to?
No, just loosen
So,
the screws on the coupler.
but does it? I mean, like, is I guess what I'm trying to say is the head counterweighted in some way? Like
Uh,
the
to
the spindle.
keep it from falling. That I don't know. the I don't know. I would like to think they thought of this, but maybe you just stack blocks of wood up there.
Yeah, that's
I
what
don't
I'm
know.
basically getting at.
That's a good point. I did not consider that until now. Because if it
Nope.
has brakes, it's probably brakes on the ball screw,
Yeah.
not the So then once you remove the ball screw, it's kind of like if you're working on a car and you take off the drive shaft and then it rolls off on you. Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure they thought of it.
No high-low.
No high-low.
Okay.
Probably because everyone was like me and just kept it in high all the time. I think you're the one person that used low bell on the 1100. I've literally never ever seen anybody else do it under any circumstances.
I did it a lot. I used that feature.
I know. There was a lot of Path Pilot improvements, and I don't. So we were constantly like changing the revision of Path Pilot because almost everything, like all their machines were running not just like a beta version of Path Pilot, but like pre-release, like this is coming right off the dev's computer, like no testing yet at all. And so there was a couple times where it was like, oh, let's switch to the version that has this feature, or oh, let's switch from this version that doesn't have this feature that makes this thing easier. And we probably used like 6 different versions of Path Pilot in the 2 days that I was there. But it had a bunch more settings for smoothing. Like you could really dial in your smoothing and acceleration settings.
Oh, that's nice.
On Path Pilot, like in the UI. And like way beyond like the Haas G187P1, whatever.
Yeah.
And it added a load meter for your spindle and the axes.
Oh, thank goodness.
So that's nice.
Did you see any of them that had like they would like do like a max hold, like a max load hold? Like if you were running with the meter and you hit a cut, you got like you can see your percentages go up. Do they have anything that like holds the max value for like a couple seconds before it drops back down? Kind of like a soundboard. Like have you ever used a soundboard where like you turn up the volume will max out and it'll hold for a little bit?
Yeah, as like not that it's changing what the motor's doing, but just as a visualizer so you can see that peak.
Yeah, see, like it got up to this high and then it stopped. And see, the nice thing is, the Haas doesn't do that, but what the Haas does is on every single tool, you can see the max load that tool has pulled.
Interesting.
And so,
I don't know. It's a digital load meter, so there's probably some amount of sample rate. I wasn't, which also means it would filter out some of the peaks. So I don't know if you would need it, but no, not that I saw.
Okay.
It would also happily run over 100%.
So what did their load meter look like? Was it like a bar that went up and down?
It was like a loading bar. And it like changed color it was like green under 100%. It would turn yellow if you hit above 100%, but under 300%. And at like 300% it turned red or something like that.
Okay.
Take those numbers with a grain of salt. But
and what about did your axes have it, or was it just your spindle motor?
The axes had it too. I never saw the axes go over like 20%.
Okay.
Maybe they got to 50% with the 2-inch face mill, but
so when I ran the tormach, I used to found that I ran into horsepower limitations when I was doing aluminum, and I ran into servo limitations whenever I did stainless or steel.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to see.
Well, running aluminum, there was definitely a lot of overhead in the servos. Yeah. I think in both cases you would run into spindle horsepower limitations.
Okay.
First. The spindle cartridge was like, I swear, 6 times the size of the 1100.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a lot bigger.
Does it have sealed bearings?
I don't know, but I do know this is not Tormach's design. No shade on the Tormach design team who designed the MX spindle, but this one is professionally designed. Maybe that is a little bit of shade. But
what? Can it run at 10,000 RPM for several hours without problems?
I would assume so, but let's wait until one hits the wild to be 100% sure. I just used my
So,
brand new tweezers to pull a splinter or a metal chip. Thank you, person who
um,
sent me tweezers.
on
Making
a
it good.
side note, my tormach or not my tormach, my Haas machine has been running basically 12 day all day for the
12
last
day? 12,
12k
1200, 12,000. 12K.
yeah
Okay. Yeah.
12k all day
12 day all day.
for the last for all of this week and for half of last week, and I've been monitoring my spindle temperatures um,
Mm-hmm.
every day, and I've never seen it get up to 130. It's been averaging about 120 degrees, and
Okay.
the hottest I've seen was 126, and that was on a day when we had a lot of deliveries and the shop door was open and it got up to
Mm-hmm.
80 degrees in the shop.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but it's been running like really cool for not being chilled, actively cooled. So, super happy about that. But anyways, so um what other questions do I have?
Oh,
I noticed there
I
was
have
an
one.
actual oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I had one last thing, but it's going to be a longer story. So go on. What you noticed there was an actual.
I like the this one's only going to come with the console. Like you can't get this one with the
Yes.
okay. Cuz like the actual start stop buttons, I know if you get the console on the 1100, you can get it with start and stop buttons, but like that was like something that I saw in one of your videos that just stood out to me was like I was staring at the console with the start stop and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome."
It also got taller.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like in like landscape mode or something.
portrait mode. Yeah,
Or
it's in portrait mode.
yeah, not landscape,
Yeah.
portrait. Yeah.
Um,
I
oh, so
interrupted your thought.
the robot and automation setup they had was pretty good, and like I could still like it's not done yet. Like even while I was there, they were like redesigning the table that the robot sits on.
Mhm.
It needed to be moved 6 inches to the left, and so that was one of the things I did while they were there. And I know they have a new version of the table on the way that'll be a little bit stiffer. But the Path Pilot robot integration was really good. And like they ran, I don't know how many, a couple dozen soft jaws on their automation setup just as
Mhm.
like a test when I was there. And I went and I grabbed them and I grabbed a pair of calipers. I couldn't find a mic, but I found a pair of calipers. And I measured like the first one they made and like a couple out of the middle and the last one. Every single one of them read exactly the same. It was like 38 millimeters or something, or 28 millimeters on the dot, every single one of them. No deviation whatsoever to
That's
caliper
awesome.
accuracy. If I used a
Yeah.
mic, I'm sure there would be a little bit more accuracy, but over like 60 parts or something, no deviation with that robot and the mill.
Um does what were they using to clamp? Like were they using pneumatic jaws? Like where did
So they
they
had, yeah, they had a pneumatic vise, a double station pneumatic vise that looked a lot like the. No, I guess it wouldn't be like the Versa vise. It looks like the same pneumatic double station that everybody and their brother has.
what about so how are they communicating? Like first the solenoids, do they have like an IO shield or is there some stuff built in?
So
Um
the robot had its own iteration of Path Pilot, and the mill was, of course, running its version of Path Pilot.
mhm.
And you can hard cable between them, like if you wanted to run like some dry contact switches. But they were talking over Wi-Fi.
They were.
They were talking over Wi-Fi. And again,
Oh,
at one point they did have them wired directly with an Ethernet cable, so you can do that, or you can do dry contact switches. But the demo I saw, they were doing Wi-Fi, and
interesting.
um, the robot was running the show. So like the robot was the smart one here,
Mhm.
and it was able to run both MDI statements or programs on the mill. So the robot. So let's say we're starting with. So the mill finishes a cycle. It has an op one that's done and an op two that's done, and the robot has raw stock. The
Mm-hmm.
robot had 2 grippers on it. It would it would pick up the raw stock in one gripper, come over to the mill. It would lift up the finished op 1 part and then put down the raw stock, then pick up the op 2 part, and then load the op 1 from the previous step. But in between there, it could command the mill to move. I have to watch back on my video again. But I remember what it was. So the robot would come in the door into a ready position, and then the robot would tell the mill to move to the loading position, where the robot would pick up and do the flip and load it in. Then the robot would move out, and then the robot would command the start of the program.
When the robot told the tormach to move over to the window, was it running a separate program, or was it inputting it through MDI?
It was an MDI line. It was right in the program, the robot's program. It was like, I'm sure there was a function that it was fed into, but it was just like, G0, X14, Y, whatever, Z, whatever. And then at the end of the program, it was a, hey, just run this program that's in your controller.
Gotcha.
But it could also, so the robot was able to get signals directly from the mill. So the mill had signals like, hey, this part's been misloaded, or, hey, I broke a tool. Like, it could pass those directly to the robot. Or the robot, well, I guess the robot didn't need to in this case, the robot didn't need to talk to the mill, but you could have the robot, for example, use a vision system to look at the part after it was loaded and to change the offset if you really wanted to. There's not much reason to, because the mill can just do probing. But if you wanted to, you could have the robot update offsets of where it placed the parts based on some sort of feedback.
What about in-process probing?
That was all handled like normal on the tormach itself.
Okay. And so, with the robot automation, was it doing any in-process probing, or was it purely relying on where the robot stuck the part?
Yeah, so it would. It was the normal, like, right before you run kind of probing, where it would do an existence check. The mill would just make sure the material was there, and then it would find like the left and right bound just to make sure that, just to find the exact centeredness. They did not leave much extra material. They had maybe like 20 thou extra material on this. So if they had missed, it would have shown up. But it would find the exact position, and it would make sure on the op 2 that it was pressed into the vise all the way by just probing.
Gotcha.
So, and that's not true. They also found the X coordinate by probing a finished surface that was available. So, yeah, they probed everything, is the long story short.
Were they programming this in Fusion?
The robot is all Python based.
Okay.
And I think I said this before the podcast. I don't think this was on the podcast. I think the robot interface, if you have any experience with something like programming in Arduino or any like Python experience, you're fine. Like, it's super easy to use and super intuitive. I think if you don't have any coding experience, it'll be rough. Like, if you've never played with an Arduino, you would have a rough time integrating it. But if you are familiar with, set IO pin 1 to high and like that doing things in the real world, like if you were familiar with that kind of programming, it's very quick and easy. After that, the only thing is like the mental map of like, how do I want the robot to move?
Gotcha. Okay.
And they had auto doors for the 1500. I don't
really.
They had a really nice auto door for the 1500. It's not released yet. I think this was just a prototype. but they had an auto door for the 1100 too.
Oh, so
So
did the door lock whenever you were running a program, or could you open the door?
so the auto door was a door on the side of the machine, which is where the
Oh, okay.
robot went in and out. They had so not the front door. The front door did lock. I guess the auto door was pneumatic, so I think as long as it had pressure, it would be closed. And I assume if you lost pressure, it would be able to open and close freely. But yes, the front door now locks if you are running the machine.
Now, I saw on the new machine that it's got like a convenience package like you would call on a Haas machine. You can put tools and stuff on the side?
Uh huh.
How'd that look?
That was pretty cool, and it has the wall control pattern on it, which is kind of like a pegboard pattern, but it has some extra little doohickeys to make things like clamp in there more securely. And
Mm-hmm.
I was a little bit disappointed to see that out of all the machines, they only had one thing hanging from the wall control pattern, and that was a hammer. Um,
Oh,
I am. I told Norman that if I ever got to play with one of these machines on my own, I was going to make a Gridfinity to wall control adapter and
mm-hmm.
Gridfinity out the front of the machine. Um, but honestly, I think rattling would be an issue if you tried to put too much on the front there, because um,
Can you
I don't know. There's just like layers of like sheet metal on sheet metal on sheet metal on sheet metal by the time you get out to the end of the wall control thing.
what about tool holders? Could you stick tool holders on it?
The tool holders had their own slots, and those were
Oh,
fine.
okay.
Yeah, just the stuff on the wall control, I think would be a little bit like I wouldn't want to make a wall control like tool holder add on and put that in there. But I don't know, maybe you could. Yeah,
Ooh,
they had a bunch of room for tool holders on the outside.
what about an air gun or a washdown hose? Did they have either of
Oh,
those?
both standard.
Oh, yes.
So
Good.
they have an air gun with its own regulator on the kind of like the regulators on the bottom of the machine and the air guns where you expect the air gun to be. They had a coolant hose, like a coolant washdown hose on the inside, which now that I say that, that would be standard with the coolant pump. If you didn't buy the coolant system, which I don't know why you would ever buy the machine without it, but if you did, you wouldn't get the washdown hose.
Okay.
Um, and then also the table had two standard air connections in it. So like built in from factory, it had two lines plumbed to the table.
Were those already solenoided up? Are they solenoided from the
They are
factory?
not solenoided from the factory,
Oh,
but
okay.
it wouldn't be hard to add that.
Gotcha. Did you get a look inside the electrical cabinet?
Yep, that's all in the video.
Oh, okay, good.
We don't quite go through that in much detail because it's just the electrical cabinet. Um, they don't have a Mesa board anymore. Their servos handle all of the logic,
Oh,
which is
okay.
kind of cool. Um,
Do they still have like you still have to manually mount your fourth axis drive in there? Like do they have a spot dedicated for expansion?
I don't know. I don't know how that works. Um, the ones that I saw, I think all. I'd have to go look back in the video. Um, I do remember there was one machine we looked at that I don't think had the fourth axis drive, but I think
Hmm.
the machine that we looked at in the cabinet did.
What did you think of the new fourth axis? Did you get to play with it?
I never got to play with it. I was originally planning on using it to make parts, but I didn't get the design work done in time, so I had to make something simpler. Um, it's a big micro arc. I mean, that's like it looks like someone took the micro arc and went and it got bigger. It has like it's like a 36 millimeter through bore now,
Oh,
which
good.
is way better than the like 12 millimeters the micro arc 4 has. Um,
It was like 16, I think, because it could do a
16
three
millimeter.
quarter
It
inch.
was it
It
was
could do a three
small.
quarter inch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, this one it's a micro arc but bigger as far as I can tell.
Okay.
There's not. Oh, and it does have the EtherCAT servos now, so
Oh,
it's
okay.
faster. But
Oh, that's nice.
And it has homing. It has homing too.
Yeah, yeah. Unlike the other one that was just you wherever you left it, that's where it was.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's an improvement. Like it's not a new paradigm like the whole rest of the machine is, but it's definitely an
Mm-hmm.
improvement over the littler one.
Um, what else? Lighting, is that pretty the same?
Um, I never actually looked at the lights now that I think about it, but I mean it was very bright in there, like brighter than any other machine you've ever seen.
Okay.
It would be really
Um,
nice for filming. Oh, the windows on the side were designed from the factory to nicely slide up and down,
oh,
and
good.
it had pins so that you could like pin it in place wherever you wanted.
Does the machine come with a camera?
It's like a $70 add-on,
Oh, okay.
which implies to me that you could use a cheap webcam as well, because it's just a
Okay.
webcam. Like you plug it in via
Well,
USB.
did they have one that was like right underneath the spindle? I thought I saw a video with one underneath the spindle.
I don't think I saw a machine with one mounted. If I did, I didn't notice it.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Um, Wi-Fi standard, I'm assuming, on those.
Mhm. Part of the new
Okay.
controller.
Trying to think of any questions I can ask you. Um, you said the door locked when running, right? The
Yes.
front door. Did you have to unlock it to open the door?
There's a button kind of right by the handle that you just press the button and it kind of kicks the door like an inch out and then you move it the rest of the way.
So it's like there's like a door release.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a door
So it,
release.
so it doesn't automatically unlock at say end of program.
I don't think so. I don't know.
Okay. That's something I'm going to have to get used to because I think the Doosan's that way. You have to push anytime you close it, it automatically locks and you have to push a button to unlock it.
You might have to do that on this machine too.
So,
Like
that
it can lock the door. Like if the program is running, the door. Well, I don't know what happens. I didn't try opening the door with the program running. I don't know if it would feed hold or if it just wouldn't let you open the door.
it's probably just going to be a door lock, but the question is at the end of the program does it automatically unlock? And if you close the door and the program's not running, does it lock and you have to push the button every single time?
I think you have to press the button every time. Could be wrong, but I think
Okay.
you do.
Cuz I don't have to do that on the Haas, but I think I have to do that on the Doosan. I think anytime you close the doors, it automatically locks and it won't unlock unless you push the button.
Yeah, which I could see like that's something you do a million times a day, eventually getting old.
Yeah. Yeah. So, um cuz there was a lot of times I ran with the tormach with the doors open depending on what I was doing. So, I
Yeah.
do miss that.
Well, even just like probing in your parts, like
Mhm.
it's nice to do that with the door open, and I don't think you can do that with the door open on this one.
Yeah. The the parts that I'm running right now, I've got a fixture that's mounted to the 5 axis. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard mounted, and I wanted to have the ability to have the program stop and have the auto doors open the door and have the 5 axis in the position where I can because it's got parts all the way around the perimeter on the side of it. And I wanted to have it where I could change out all the parts on the top, hit cycle start, and it would rotate and rotate to the next part, and then every time I hit cycle start, it would
Oh
rotate
yeah,
perfectly to the next position, but it won't work with the doors open.
that's a
And
bummer.
it's like so like that's something that like I could hack my way to make work. Um but I wish there was like uh a move machine with spindle off
Yeah,
mode that allowed to keep the doors open and run.
I want to say there is. I know on my Haas I can do that.
Not on the new ones.
It's a parameter that you have to change.
They deleted it on the new machines.
Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah.
Darn safety.
Well, so talking to a Haas um, sales rep about the problem, or not a sales rep, a Haas uh, application engineer. That's who it was. It was an application engineer I talked to this about. Um, he said that Haas used to allow you to run the machine up to 750 RPMs and rapids at 25% if you had the doors open and it was in a safe mode.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say it was 2017, 2018, something like that. They had a machine with the doors open and a part running that a guy was running a part with a drill bit. It was like a 12 times D half inch or drill bit or something, and he had his face next to it, and the drill bit exploded.
Yeah, don't do
And
that.
he sued Haas over it because the machine allowed him to do it.
Yeah.
So it was Haas's fault. It's like that's the kind of stuff that just ticks me off. It's like people like that sue companies for allowing them to do stupid stuff. I hate that.
Just
Like,
makes the machines more expensive for us.
yeah, and like you lose functionality. Like, just because you're stupid doesn't mean that we have to be penalized for it. So I mean, it's the way it is. You got to build things to the least common denominator, and um, unfortunately, that was a safe mode that you could run the machine in. So like, it wasn't like you could run it at 12K full everything, all this, that, and the other. But at the same time, it was like, you know, they allowed you to run it in a safe mode. That way, you could see what was going on, and someone abused it, got hurt, and blamed Haas. So they got rid of it. So now you have to do it through other means.
Our podcast is getting long, but I just remembered we have Patreons, and they have asked
Ooh.
us some questions.
Oh,
Let me
heck yeah.
refresh to make sure nothing new has popped up. I may or may not have only posted this one as we started our conversation, but we did still get 2 questions. So Trey Vestal says, simple question, but how much torque is enough with a Kurt XD6 or DX6? It seems my parts are bowing, and I'm looking for how tight other people are clamping their parts or what guidelines they are using for clamping.
Okay. That is such a loaded question.
Yes.
Not even funny. It's like asking how long is a piece of string or something. Like you can't answer it without knowing all the variables.
Well, there's a couple things I can say. One is it probably doesn't take as much force as you think it does. People generally err on the side of over tightening their vise, not under tightening their vise. Two, use a torque wrench and just like start playing with it, and eventually you'll kind of get an idea. But if you're consistent every time, then at worst you can account for your bow, or at best you can find the right amount of torque that does not bow your part.
The best way to do this: get a dial test indicator, stick it on your spindle, put it down to your machine, and tighten your vise, and watch your dial test indicator move. That works wonders for troubleshooting this kind of stuff. And so it depends on the thickness of your part. If you're trying to clamp onto a part that's a half inch thick, but it's 10 inches long, that'll bow really easy. Versus if you're trying to clamp on something that's a 1/4 inch thick or an 1/8 inch thick, but it's only a half inch wide, you can put a lot of force into that before you have to worry about it. So I mean, it's such a part specific question that if you really want to science it, get a torque wrench, get a dial test indicator, and measure how much it's bowing as you're torquing it down, and go from there. One thing that you can do if you're worried about bowing, but you also want to hog, say you're starting with something that's pretty thick and you can really clamp down on it and go to town with hogging it away, and then but you still want it to be on size. You can hog away at it, and then you can put a program stop where you can loosen the vise back up and reclamp it. And then do your finishing pass, as long as you leave enough material to account for the deflection that is going to be there from the first clamping. So there are some tricks and things you can do to work around that problem.
That is not something I would have thought of.
So I've done stuff like that, where I clamp down harder, I do all my roughing, and then I stop, back off, reclamp lighter just for the final touch-up. Usually plastic parts.
For me, it's always I use too much torque. I don't think I've ever had issues where I didn't tighten a vise enough. It's always I gorilla it. And granted, that has a lot to do with the parts that I make. Like the other day, I was making those UHMW cylinders, and literally tightening the flux vise was like I would drop, it uses an Allen wrench to tighten it, and I would like let the Allen wrench fall until it was tight, and then do an eighth of a turn, and that was honestly probably too much in some places for those little plastic parts. Okay, on a related note, EJ from Nocturnal Welding says that he scrapped a bunch of parts working on his first Xometry job, and he figures the problem was with the mod vices. I talked to him about this. He was getting issues with like potato chipping of the parts. Actually, I assumed they were along the length, but it could have been width. Then he asked what the torque rating is for the. I assume he's talking about the mod vices. He says that after he used the mod vices, he switched to a Kurt vise and then immediately started getting good parts. He has unrelated questions after that. So I don't know, torque rating on mod vices.
Same deal. Measure it, use a indicator, and see how much it bows. I would say that potato chipping with the design of the mod vices is more common, at least in my experience, and that's mainly because even though you're tightening down with the screws, with the mod vices in particular, like if you look at like a Kurt vise or any other normal vise, it has that angled plate that's pulling everything down into. It's pulling your floating jaw down as you're tightening up. In theory, you're getting the same thing with the angle-headed screws on top of the mod vise, but the problem is if your part relaxes at all, it can move forward and it can bow up, as you're machining stuff away, and so it's just not as secure because there's always going to be a certain amount of slop in the mod vices because of how those screws tighten down. You can't bottom them out per se. And unlike a Kurt vise or something like that, where it's got that long flat surface of that floating jaw that it can make contact with, and then that angled surface, there's just a lot less area underneath the mod vices to keep the same, to reduce the jaw lift that you would get.
Yeah. I know the mod vice torque spec is 30 foot-pounds, and that's like way more force than you would think. It's very easy to over torque things on the mod vices because like just the way the contraption is put together, it feels like you're not putting a whole bunch of force on, and it feels like it's mushy, I guess is the best word for it. Where if you tie in a 6-inch vise, like there's a pretty positive like, oh, look, I am making contact with the part, and now I am starting to squish the part. Whereas on the mod vices, it's like, am I touching the part? Am I collapsing the part? I don't know.
It's hard to finesse.
At least by touch, and that's where torque wrenches come in. I know I do mod vices to 20 foot-pounds. Saunders says a max of 30 foot-pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't use mod vices anymore, so.
They have their time and place. Time and place.
They do. Next question.
Oh, so same guy, different question. How has YouTube changed your life? I suppose this is probably more for me than you.
Well, it taught me machining.
Taught you machining? Okay. I guess I was figuring from like being a YouTuber. They introduced me as a YouTuber at Tormach, and I was so upset. It's like, no. I do machining. I'm not a YouTuber. And I was like, great. Is that how people think of me now? Am I just like a YouTuber? Anyway, sorry. Um, I don't know. Like, it's a thing I do. Like, it's a hobby. I got to go up to tormach. I guess that technically changed my life because I could have been making parts or something. But
YouTube made
I,
my $100,000 degree worthless. No,
uh,
no, it's not.
so
But you can learn so much on YouTube from like as just a watcher. I mean, that's basically how I built my business is trying to find every scrap of data I can on YouTube from different people posting stuff, and it's like, oh, here's a little tidbit over here. Oh, here's a little tidbit over here. Oh, here's a little tidbit over here, and I just eat it up. So I don't make
you're
YouTube
welcome.
content.
I'm trying to keep the YouTube machinist community alive. It's just like me and Inheritance Machining over here making videos now. So
I wish there was more YouTube machinists. I mean, I
I know
could be
that's what
one,
I'm saying. I'm
but
trying to keep it alive.
I could be one if I had time, and maybe that's where everyone else is at.
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly the problem. Like Saunders, like his company got big. He doesn't really need it as a marketing channel anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and so like, and it takes a lot of time. Um, unless you're me and you have low effort videos.
Yeah.
um, the other question you asked was how do you get over fear of being on camera? Start with Instagram stories. Instagram stories are super quick to do. They don't involve editing, and they disappear after 24 hours. So there is zero um, long-term repercussions. Just do Instagram stories. You'll get comfortable talking on camera, and then from there you can like record a video.
Find a friend who does all the YouTube stuff for you, and just sit down and talk to him.
That works too. Record it and then put it on YouTube and call it a podcast.
Exactly.
I suppose this would be an opportune time to thank our Patreon members. Some might even call them patrons instead of Patreons. But anyway, that makes people mad when I call them Patreons. We have, who's new? I know we have new people. I don't remember who we thanked already, but we have, at very least, who are new. We have Trey V. I should know your company name, but I don't have it on Patreon. We also have Guy L. Thank you guys. They both joined at the $25 month a tier. I said that wrong. And you guys get to record an awkward goodbye. So record a short video, like a 1-minute video, and or no, way less, like 15 seconds, and I will put it as the awkward goodbye. I will use the audio from it as the awkward goodbye. Trey apparently does not have a company name even on his Instagram profile. So thank you, Trey of Unlabeled Company and Guy. And then we also had Johnny Woods of 049 Machine. And I believe we thanked him last episode, but I'm not sure. But either way, thank you again, Johnny. So those are our new members. All members at $10 or above, they get publicly thanked, and they are Alexander Block. Oh, Alexander B. Sorry, I don't say last names. Scott from Design the Everything. Jamie from JSpec Engineering. Zach at Volunteer Metalworks. Chris Zajic with Zajic Precision. EJ at Nocturnal Welding. Simon V. Chris at Thought Bomb Design. And, of course, as always, Jake Brownson. Man, I suck at Patreon plugs. Just support us, and I'll get better, I promise. Everybody who supports us gets early access to all of our episodes. Last week, I got early access up on the same day we recorded. I was rather impressed with myself. Normally, it's the next day. You also get to ask... any person who joins our Patreon, even at a free level, you get to participate in the Q&A.
Was there any more, or was that it for Q&A?
That was all the Q&A questions. I literally posted that like 20 minutes before we recorded, so that was my fault. But thank you, Patreons. We really much appreciate you. Right now, 100% of the money that is coming from Patreon is going to our IMTS meetup. It is getting... Well, right now, it has paid for the hotel room, and we are working on paying for Harrison's plane flight. So I think at the end of this month or maybe the end of next month, we will have Harrison's plane ticket paid for. And then after that, food? Is that our
Yeah,
next goal? Food.
food.
Because eating at
Which
IMTS is darn expensive.
yes, but we just need to mosey up to a lot of different sales reps.
Yes.
So
You have snacks? Well, how would you like to sell me a machine?
so when I went down to the Titan event, it was basically all paid for by one of my tool suppliers. I basically got a free ride down, a free board, and free food. And they took us out to dinner. And it was this high-end Mexican restaurant. And they went buck wild. Like all the people that were there ordering stuff. It was
Yeah.
crazy. It was so much fun. So if you're going to IMTS, try to mosey up to some salespeople because they will take care of you in the food department. So everyone I've talked to who's like goes to IMTS every year says if you buy your own food, you're dumb. Like, go find some people; they'll take you out.
See,
So,
I would have to like stick with someone like you to do that because I would like not talk to people. I guess is the short answer.
oh man,
This
I
is
talk
why
to
we're
everyone.
doing the IMTS meetup right at the beginning. It's because me and people like me just want to go make friends. And so we need
Oh,
to find extroverts to like hang out with so that we make even more friends. Like that's the point of the IMTS meetup.
so that brings up a fun side story about extroverts. So I'm extremely extroverted.
You
As much
think?
as I am extroverted, my wife is introverted,
Yeah.
and we went to Silver Dollar City, and we were in line for like 6 hours.
What is a silver dollar city?
It's a theme park in Branson,
Okay.
Missouri. Um, it's an awesome place, and anyways, we were in line. It wasn't for 6 hours. We were in line for several hours for one of their new rides, and there was a family that was doing this thing where they take their cell phone and they hold it up to their head, and the people have to describe it without saying the word, and
Oh.
the person holding the cell phone has to guess, and they go like down if it's yes or up if it's no, something like that. Anyways,
Yeah.
family was doing that, and it was a mother and her kids, and so I was just kind of watching them. Eventually, I made friends and I started helping them out, and we became pretty good friends in line. And then they took a family photo, and I noticed that I was in the corner of it, and so I photobombed them.
Yep.
And then later, I got a message from some friends on Facebook that were like, "Were you at Silver Dollar City with this family?" I was like, "Why do you ask?" And apparently, a post went viral where this family was like, "Have you seen this man? He was fun. We want to say hi."
That's so funny.
And so I was like, "That was me." So it was pretty fun.
While you were telling that story, I realized I don't think I said Eric H in my list of Patreons. Thank you, Eric H. He is also a awkward goodbye tier member, and nobody has sent me an awkward goodbye yet. So record a 1 minute video or less and send it to me, and we'll wait like an awkward amount of time after the podcast episode, and then I'll play that audio clip. So somebody needs to do it. It's the whole point of the tier. Otherwise, just go back down to the $10 a month tier.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, end of rant.
We need to have a podcast episode or a podcast episode where we have all of our Patreons on.
Yes, I got a couple messages that I definitely didn't answer. Sorry, guys. About people who are willing to come on. I think one was JSpec Engineering, though he's in Joburg, I think. And who was the other person? Oh, Eric. Eric Hannett, who I forgot to thank. So,
And for those of you, I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast. I did say I was going to be in Europe. So the next 2 weeks I'm going to be gone for podcast episodes.
should I try to record without you?
If you can find a guest to have them on, I would.
Okay, I'll try.
So you don't have to have me around.
Maybe I can get Serven. Would you be mad at me if I did Serven without you?
A little bit, just because I haven't done it with him, but it would be totally fine. Like, I'll just have to catch up with him after the fact. Yeah. Maybe I'll just, like...
Last time we talked to them, they were
fine.
doubling, like, every 3 weeks. So they're, like, what, $1 billion business right now?
I think I think Amazon was getting a little nervous last time I talked.
Yeah. I'm surprised Amazon hasn't bought them yet.
So,
Otherwise, they would be ready to buy Amazon. So,
yeah.
at exponential growth, man, it's a killer.
So you could have them on. It'd be good to hear from them. I'd love to hear from them again. But it'd be cool to have some new guys on too. So I don't know. Whoever you want to have as a guest, that's fine, and it'll just be my punishment for missing it. So, but that'll be
We could
great.
probably get Rogi at some point too.
I'd love
CEO
to.
Tormach.
Oh yeah, that would be fun. The guy who did the Flux work holding.
Oh yeah, Ken.
Ken, that'd be cool to have him on again. I'd love to see how that's going. The Flux work holding.
I haven't talked to him very much lately.
There's several people that I've reached out to in the past about coming on, and I've never really followed back up with them. I'd like to have some more guests on in general. Just because it's a lot of fun having other people on.
Man, we should get Dylan back on. He was our biggest episode for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Dylan's great.
I think we've finally gotten past that now, just from general subscriber growth. But I bet if we had him on again, he would be our biggest episode for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Again.
Dylan, you heard it here first.
I have to check
Dylan, I would
Maybe
be upset if
did
you
be
had
there.
him on without me. He'd probably be the one person that I'd be like, no, I need to be there.
Okay, fine. I mean, we can always have Fidget Things back on. We could get Norman on.
Oh, that'd be a good one.
Yeah. I think I would want you here with Norman because he's a quieter person. And I need your extrovert energy to kind of carry the conversation. Otherwise, it's just like two introverts staring at a camera, which is nothing if not a great podcast episode.
Yeah. No, I mean you could have Dylan. Like you could have anyone on, honestly. Like it doesn't matter who you pick. I'm gonna find a reason that I will want to be on with them. So as long as you have someone on and can keep the podcast going, just go for it.
Cool.
So Dylan would be good.
Nick from P3D would also be awesome.
Yeah. I've been watching a lot of Adam the Machinist videos recently. He's a good one. He did a 1911 build that is just awesome.
Sick. Until YouTube took it down.
Well, he put it back up. He put a different one
I know.
up.
I saw that. Is that still up? He changed the name to be
it's like educational.
Awesome. Yeah, it was like, this is an art project, YouTube. Get over it. I know he did cut out some of the moments in there to make it a little bit more YouTube algorithm palatable.
Yeah.
But I wish I saw what his name was, but it was like, this is an art project.
It's such a good video. I watched it as fast as I could because I was afraid they would take it down.
You were correct.
So, well, I meant his new one.
Oh,
because I knew they took down his old one. I don't know if the new one's still up.
I don't know.
But yeah, there's a lot of guys that we just need to have more people on. All right, it's that time. We're wandering. So, guys, thanks for hanging out. This has been a longer podcast, even for us. Looks like we're at like over an hour and a half, about an hour 45. So, thanks for hanging out with us, and I'll miss you guys in the next few weeks, but hopefully AJ will have something lined up so that we can keep the podcast rolling. And this has been Harrison with Precision Ingenuity, signing out with AJ from Audacity Micro. And any of you guys in Europe that are wanting to meet up, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully we can make that happen.
The video is titled Art Documentary Video on Recreating John Moses Browning Fourth Best Invention. And it is still up.
That is awesome. Love it.
Patrons, this is the awkward goodbye. This is what you get to record. Record one, please, for the people in the right tier, and send it to me. And this could be you.
We have 30 seconds to meet a minute and an hour and 45. We got to make it at least another 30 seconds of awkwardness. Getting closer. I wonder what our longest podcast episode is.